Welcome to Meet, Act, and Part, a Masonic podcast hosted by Midnight Freemasons, Greg Knott, Darin Larners, Todd Vriesen, and Bill Hostler.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Meet, Act, and Part. This is episode number 40. I like nice, even numbers. And so let me introduce myself. I am one of your co-hosts, Greg Knott.
I'm Bill Hostler.
And hi, I'm Darin Laners.
Thank you, everybody, again for joining us. We're just going to have just a casual conversation tonight about a number of things that have been going on. We're going to talk about a trip Bill took to Alaska. Going to touch on maybe some current events in Masonry. Going to talk about the Illinois Grand Lodge annual communication and some good experiences Darin had there. And then we're just going to see where this goes. So again, thanks for tuning in. We always appreciate it. We've got a number of guests we're getting lined up for future episodes. So hope you stay with us and see where the future goes. Okay, so Darin and I, this weekend, as we record this past weekend, went to the annual communication of the Most Worshipful Grand Lodge of Illinois. In our case, it's held in Springfield, Illinois at the Capitol Convention Center. And so we don't have a historic old Grand Lodge building like some jurisdictions do, but they do a really good job of turning the Capitol Convention Center into a meeting room for us. There's about maybe 1,000 brethren there, more or less, and from all over the state of Illinois. And so like a lot of these, you spend the first couple hours of everybody getting introduced and roll on through some proposed legislation that we had. We then vote on those, and then we do a number of other committee reports. We elect the Grand Lodge officers, and then we adjourn. So, hey, it's almost just like a normal great big lodge meeting. But I guess what was interesting this year, to touch on the legislation piece, there was proposed from some brethren in the northern part of the state about if a member of the Grand Lodge, if a member of any lodge in Illinois should stay a member if they're also a member of an organization that is considered a domestic terrorist organization. And we won't get into all the history of it, but it was kind of an interesting piece of legislation that was not passed. And Darin, you were there. I don't know if you could reflect on any of the, lightly the discussion without getting in the weeds, but it seemed like most people weren't in favor of it. When I read it, I was worried about how you would administer such a policy. What were you hearing about it?
So the interesting thing regarding the legislature was that the Grand Lodge Committee, and I forget what the official name for it, but it's basically the committee that reviews any proposals for amendments to the bylaws and Constitution, had in their official ruling after meeting as a committee stated that they had some concerns regarding it, but that they felt that the message was appropriate and that they actually recommended passing the legislation. I think what actually doomed the legislation potentially after that was that the Grand Master at this point, because it was Friday, our acting Grand Master, Stephen Oakley, spoke against the amendment. And then I think at that point that basically probably killed the amendment. As you stated, Greg, I think that part of the issue was that the amendment was open-ended to the point where it basically stated that if you were on a government list, official government list of an organization that was branded a domestic terrorist organization, that could be grounds for suspension. I know almost all the brothers who initiated the legislation, and I understand the intent. I think, and my advice to them was just to name names if they attempt to bring this back next year. I think that part of the issue was that they left it open-ended, relying on the government to list these organizations instead of just giving them names. I think had they just came in with the legislation saying that groups such as the Ku Klux Klan, Antifa, the Proud Boys, the Three Percenters, just to name a few off the top of my head, have ideologies that are incompatible with Freemasonry, and therefore, if you are found to be a member of one of these groups, you should be suspended from the craft. I think that would have been a more powerful message than just kind of saying, well, if you're on a list of a government list somewhere stating that you're a member of a domestic terrorist organization, that wasn't going to go well with the brethren. I think obviously the main concern brought up, and I think fairly so, was that this list potentially could fluctuate depending upon what majority party is in the legislature or in the executive branch, so on and so forth. So to try to, I think, depoliticize it would be my advice to those brethren. But I think, obviously, I think we would all probably sit here and agree that we don't want men that are bigots or racists or white supremacists or anarchists as part of the Freemasonry. And I think it's fair to say, and I don't think there's any disagreement in that. I think that the fear is that allowing an entity outside of ours, especially one that's a government entity, to name these groups is where we fall into some problems.
Yeah. And so I think maybe they'll readdress it administratively and bring it back. I think, importantly, probably the message was sent about their concerns about those type of organizations. Bill.
Well, now mind you, I did not read this legislation or how it was worded or anything about it. And I agree, we don't want racists or bigots or of any color or race, creed, whatever, anti-Semitic, anyone like that in our craft. The thing I'm thinking more from a standpoint of, application of this law. How would it be enforced? How would it be, unless you have prima facie evidence of someone like a photograph in this organization's regalia at a meeting, or like you find one of their secret rolls of membership rolls or anything. How do you actually prove that you're going to have a Masonic trial. You're going to have actual physical evidence to do this. Maybe, you might be able to get several people as witnesses to prove this. But it also could be, sadly, it could also be used as a weapon against a brother that you don't like. You can say, well, I know, particularly this brother is a member of XYZ organization. He's, I am not. Well, of course you're going to say you're not. Well, I say you are. And then, it says, well, we have to, err on the side of caution. So I'm sorry, brother, but you're, expelled. Unless, how do it would be really tough to enforce. It would be really tough. You'd have countless, I'm sure, Masonic trials. The red tape would go crazy. And then not only besides that, but it's also like Darin said, it's like this today, I would be, if they make, if they make the Boy Scouts a domestic terrorist group next week, Greg, you're out. Darin, you're out. Me, since I didn't get past Cub Scouts, I guess I'm okay. But I mean, it just could be, who's whimsy. And so it's a great idea, but it just seems really problematic and kind of it's encroaching on a terrorist list. But sadly, are these groups actually illegal to join? It just kind of brings up a slippery slope. I mean, we're putting in our finger into a dike that really shouldn't be messed with, in my opinion.
Yeah. So I think it'll take care of itself. And so before we go too far down the road on this one, I think we'll just kind of leave it at that because there's a lot of feelings about it. And I just think it was worth mentioning as part of the communication that we did. So other things that went on, there was a proposal to talk about virtual meetings that I think got kicked to next year. And part of that was, could you have a stated meeting and have hybrid a Zoom at the same time. And so it sounds like there's still some details to work out on that, because here in the new world, people are going to expect to be able to attend things on Zoom as they have done for the last 18, 19 months. And to me, it looks like an opportunity to keep people engaged, especially if they live far away, out of state or things like that, and wouldn't normally get to attend. Definitely does not replace the in-person meetings from me, because that's a big part of it, not just sitting on Zoom all the time. But that one was also delayed. And so that was the extent of the legislation this year, just really 2 or 3 things, and it went quickly. We had a vote for the Grand Lodge officers for next year, and most of them moved up. The entry point is the junior Grand Warden on the elected side. There was a contested race on that, and it was really kind of interesting to see that process take place and the votes, and it was reasonably close. And for that, and the beauty of it was all done so professionally, so civilly. I think it just was a shining light example of what Freemasonry was. 2 candidates present themselves to run, or in this case, were suggested to run. And the brethren voted, and one of the brethren won. And the other brother, I think, was very gracious about it. So I think it was just a real act of true Masonic civility. Darin, any observation on that one?
Yeah, actually, Greg, there were 2 amendments regarding virtual meetings, and one of them passed. So the one that passed was an amendment to our Code 215. I brought it up, so I'll read it really quick. Basically, Code 215 currently, prior to the vote, stated meetings are those held at the time prescribed by the bylaws, and at such meetings, all general business, such as balloting for candidates for the degrees or for membership, election of officers, and the discussion of questions relative to the interests of fraternity. Stated meetings may be transacted in a lodge of entered apprentices, fellow crafts, or master masons at the discretion of the worshipful master. Only master masons shall be allowed to vote. And the change was a hybrid or virtual stated meeting may be held by the lodge for the transaction of business only with the following requirement. 1, the lodge virtual meeting monitor is responsible for the control of members attending in the virtual platform, and their name must appear in secretary's minutes. 2, a member must meet one of the following conditions to be allowed to participate in the virtual platform. He must live outside a minimum of 50 miles from the lodge hall or have medical reason for not attending in person. 3, a quorum must be present in the lodge to open or close the meeting in correct form on the 1, 2, 3, on the first, second, or third degree, with the opening completed before any attendance is allowed in the virtual platform and closed after the virtual platform is terminated. No degree work shall be allowed in any virtual meeting. Voting in virtual meetings, only master masons shall vote. Any voting shall be only for business issues such as where money is being allocated, other issues affecting lodge operations, and the ballot box is not needed. There shall be no voting on membership issues such as petition, plural memberships, degrees, etc. A separate secure method requiring a separate login shall be used for voting. 6, in all virtual meetings, the member participating must use audio and video so the moderator can ensure the identity of the member. And 7, care shall be taken to ensure no non-Mason can see or hear the virtual meeting. Basically, justification was given to allow members that cannot attend a stated meeting of their lodge because they live out of state, a long distance from the lodge hall, or have health reasons limiting them from attending lodge to participate in the lodge business and feel closer to the other members. So I think that's honestly a huge deal, because it allows some of the membership that are not in state to attend meetings and still have their voice heard. So
that's good. So good progress. So, well, that was the annual communication in the morning. And in the afternoon, really the big event that happened was Darin was the feature presenter at the Illinois Lodge of Research, and he gave a presentation, which I didn't see because I had to come back to be at work on campus. But Darin was awarded a special award from the Illinois Lodge of Research. And Darin, I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you what it was and talk a little bit about that experience.
So the award is the Torok Award for Masonic Education. It's an award that is basically just given, according to the website, to people that have progressed Masonic education or Masonic education through the Illinois Lodge of Research. And it's, as I said, it's not given annually. It's kind of just given as needed, I guess. I was completely caught off guard by receiving the award. The last award recipient was Robert Johnson in 2017, and it was kind of special to have Robert present the award to me at this particular meeting. Like I said, I'm still kind of speechless over it. I don't think I'm deserving, but I'll be gracious and accept the award, and it'll actually make me try harder because, like I said, I'm still I still don't. Given some of the names on that list, like Ed Rodden, who anybody who is from Illinois knows Ed's impact on Masonic education in the state of Illinois, to be on that list next to him and some other men, it's really kind of, it's obviously a great honor, and I don't want to lessen it, but like I said, I think I just do what I do, and I don't think that I'm necessarily deserving of it, but like I said, it's a great honor, and I thank all the members of the LOR for granting it to me.
A lot of great names on that list, Darin, but you're deserving to be on there. And, part of an award like that is not only what you have done, but in some ways it raises the bar and the expectations for what you will do. And so don't let Darin sell himself short. I know he's written over 80 articles, or probably more, for the Midnight Freemasons, a number of other publications, the California Lodge of Research, and others that I know of. He keeps this podcast going. And so he's one of the most active and prolific people in Masonic education right now. So absolutely well-deserved. And if that wasn't enough, he got called to go back on Saturday because he received another recognition, and that was for his efforts as he's the Eastern Area Education Officer, which is a big responsibility. And he was recognized for his efforts, not only in that job and that role, but also, again, more broadly on some of the things he's done to further the cause of education. And you can further the cause of education. You don't just have to be an author. You don't just have to be a podcaster. A lot of it is behind the scenes work, or encouraging others to get involved and also be part of it, to encourage the local lodges. And so he's done all of that. So I would say, Darin, excellent job. We're proud of you. Glad you were able to be there both days to receive those recognitions. And like with any of those awards, it really is probably just seeding the future for you to do even more. And so again, great job on both of those.
Thanks, Greg. Thank you.
So, Bill, enough of the Grand Lodge Communication of Illinois. You didn't just go to Springfield. You went to Alaska this summer. I've always wanted to go to Alaska. I thought I was going to go to Alaska, but I backed out because I was worried I wasn't going to get a rental car. But you got to tell me about that trip up there. And I know you included a little bit of masonry visits in there, but tell us about Alaska.
Well, first, I'd like to also congratulate Darin on everything he does. And one of the things that wasn't mentioned is that he edits my posts and makes me sound somewhat intelligent and lucid. And so, right there, that's a major undertaking in itself. So I thank you, Darin, and keep up the good work in that department.
Thanks, Bill.
But
Thank you.
we did go to Alaska for 10 days right at the end of August into September, and we came back on Labor Day weekend. And it was pretty much a barnstorming trip across Alaska. We landed in Anchorage, and we went to Seward and spent a few days. And I wrote a piece of Midnight Freemasons about the temple there, which kind of, I don't know whether I should go into that again or not, but they hold their meetings inside the church. And it's a beautiful little church, a little chapel, just on a little hill right out on the outskirts of town, right near a mountain range in a pine forest. And it's just so picturesque. I didn't even realize it was the lodge building. And I took a photo of it because it was just about a block from where we were staying. And after a little bit of looking around and, researching to try to find the lodge, I discovered that was it. And I was like, wow, that is really cool. And I think what I gather is, since the Grand Lodge of Alaska is only about 40 years old, it broke away from the Grand Lodge of Washington in the early 80s. They really don't have a lot of their own buildings. It was something I didn't realize, because we went to I wanted to go visit the lodge in North Pole, Alaska. It's right outside of Fairbanks, and we put it in the GPS, and we got there, and there's nothing on it that says the Masonic Hall. It says the Lions Club. So I was going to take a photograph. It's like, well, I guess I'm not a member of the Lions Club, so I think I'll just skip that. But we did go and take a look at the Grand Lodge building in Anchorage. It's a beautiful building. It's a nice little couple-story building, and and I had my photograph taken. And among everything, it's just a very beautiful place. I would really suggest anybody who has an opportunity to go and take a trip through there and see the beauties of the 49th state. It's a vision to see. Now I just have one state left to see, and then I've collected all 50 stamps.
So is Hawaii your remaining state?
Yep, that's the last one I haven't been to.
Oh, I got 3 left: Alaska, Hawaii, and actually Oregon. I don't know how I haven't hit Oregon, but maybe we should have a midnight Freemason meet, act, and part excursion to Hawaii sometime.
Now that's a good idea. I like that.
Yeah. So, Bill, let me ask you, though, this about Alaska. I mean, it's just, I haven't been there. I've been, of course, to the Great West, but it would just seem to me the scale and size up there would just be vast and just, beautiful beyond anything we would recognize here in the Corn Belt of Illinois. But I mean, can you just talk a little bit about the vastness and the wilderness part and the natural area?
Well, it's amazing because, there's mountains everywhere, which, this guy from flat old Indiana isn't used to. And, you see glaciers. Now, I'd always heard about glaciers, but I thought I'd see one. And, you drive for a couple hundred miles and really not see anything, no cell service, and you're really getting back to nature. You're driving down these roads, and, it's not like down here in the lower 48 where, there's interstates. There are some, but they're not like here. You're driving on maybe a 4-lane road if you're lucky, but everything's just so picturesque. I don't know how many photographs I took of just the scenic views. Are just so beautiful, and I finally had to stop because it's just like, I've got so many photographs of just foliage, and, you might be going by and you'll see a moose standing out in the field, and which is really neat in itself, or, I think we've seen a couple other animals, which escapes me at the moment, but there's just so many things to see there. We went and seen Denali, and we're part of what they call the 30% Club, because most of the time Denali is, the top of Denali is covered in clouds, and you can't see it. Well, we were actually lucky enough to be there that day and see the top of it, and right down the way from it was a lake. We got to watch seaplanes take off and land on the water, which is something I'd always seen on television, but I never been able to see in real life. And it's kind of they say it's like America's last frontier, and you can truly believe it because there's just so much of it that's untouched by humans, and it's really something to see. If you wanted to go out and really rough it, and there's a lot of people that do. That's, if you're an individualist just wanting to be at one with nature, it's a great place to be because there's just so much of it. I'm not one of those. I prefer to do my camping in a hotel, but I mean, there's a lot of folks, we ended up staying in some, houses in, what's the name of I can't think of the name of it.
Airbnbs.
Yeah, there you go, Airbnbs. And one of them was this fellow he rents his house out. He's a tour guide, or he's a wilderness guide. And so he's out in the wilderness taking people out. Running the rapids or taking them hunting. He rents his house out. So we were out in the literally middle of nowhere, just sitting, and you could get up in the morning and you just look outside and just the still air, as the sun is coming up, and you can see a little bit of fog, and you might see some animals running around. And it's really neat. Or you can go down toward the coast, and it's all fishing. Some people we were with, they opted to get a fishing boat, and they came back, and some of the massive fish, I mean, like 50, 60-pound fish that they caught. And these people here, obviously, they're in it for the tourism. They will take the fish, they will clean it, and they will package it, and they will FedEx to your house. And so you can actually have, a whole freezer full of halibut you caught yourself in Alaska, and you can enjoy it at home. And there's just so many opportunities, and it's just so beautiful And then, there's like waterfalls. I actually got to see a waterfall up close. I've seen them in Oregon, right off the interstate. But here I was literally like 10 feet from one. And it just kept gushing. It's like it just doesn't end. And it really makes you really, think of what God has put down here for us and what we, take for granted every day, and what we're busy with our own lives. But it kind of puts you in touch with your Creator while you're just seeing everything He has brought to you. And I loved it. I really did.
Bill, did you get to see the Northern Lights while you were up there?
I fully intended on it. Now, the people I was with did, because they got, you had to get up at like 3:30 in the morning to get up and go to this one area to see them. And I didn't want to get up at 3:30 in the morning. I'm like, well, I've seen pictures of them, so that's good enough.
Fair enough.
They said they were beautiful.
Maybe next time, right?
Exactly.
Well, it sounds like a great trip. Darin and I kind of, we went over our last trips in the last episode. So between all three of us, we've been to figure both coasts. And, of course, Bill's case, almost to the top of the world. So it's
I can see
really
Russia
amazing.
From there.
Wow. Well, it really is not very far, is it? You mean when you get up there?
Really.
So, and of course, that's where we got Alaska, was the Secretary of State Seward.
Yeah.
Was known as Seward's Folly. And actually, I think the joke was on the Russians for letting it go. So
I think they needed the money.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so that was kind of Bill's summer vacation. And, of course, now we're rolling into fall. We've, of course, been over the annual communication, things we got coming up with, at least myself, the Valley of Danville's getting ready for our fall reunion. It's going to be a good one. We're going to have hopefully a good sized class. We're doing a number of the degrees. I have a bit part in the 23rd degree, which is the four chaplains degree, which is one of my favorite. I love the story of what that represents. But at the Valley of Danville this fall, we're going to have Mo Gomez and he's going to come and talk about his experience on 9/11. And so it's going to be good to have him in. He works for the Port Authority of New Jersey. And so he's going to be our featured speaker. So that ought to be a really good program. So if you're able to come to the Valley of Danville, Illinois in November, we would love to have you.
I think it's the 5th and 6th, isn't it, Greg?
Yeah, there it is. Yeah. Okay, if you're able to join us November 5th and 6th in Danville, you can come and experience some great degrees and listen to Mo talk about his experiences. I have not heard this presentation, so I'm really looking forward to it. And so it should be a good event. And so I'm sure you've got things going on in your local areas. So here's the key. You got to get out and participate. And maybe we'll talk a little bit about this. Darin and I were kind of talking some of it before we came on the air about the need to get involved in the community. And Darin, if you would, we were talking about the new incoming Grand Master to Illinois and his observations. If you wouldn't mind talking about that, because it really fits right in with that theme.
Sure. Our new Grand Master, Michael Jackson, no relation to the singer, gave some brief remarks Saturday morning after he had been installed the night previous at the Grand Lodge banquet where they do their installation. And the main point that he made was regarding that a local lodge, that first Freemasonry is local, that the Grand Lodge is there to support local Masonry, but essentially the Grand Lodge is made up of everyone's local lodge, and that without the local lodge, there is no Grand Lodge. His second point, which really struck me, was that a lodge is like the human body, and if you are not active, if you don't exercise by having activity as a local lodge, your muscles are going to wither, and you're going to be weak and essentially eventually die. And the point being that if you're not active at the local level, if you're not active in your community, if you're not an active lodge, you're basically going to wither and die as a lodge. So I think Greg, as Greg was mentioning, you need to be active, and it's something we were talking about needing to do more of here at our local lodge in St. Joseph, Illinois.
Yeah, and I think one of the concerns in the last 18 months, we had a really an early episode about this, was really well-being or mental health and those types of issues. And I think the isolationism that so many people have experienced since the beginning of COVID to now has affected them. And so we as humans are wired to be engaging with one another. And so to me, one of the easiest ways to do that is to go support your Blue Lodge or other Masonic bodies and be involved. And I think, and Darin is what the Grand Master said, well, and it's not only just showing up, but also be involved in the community so that you can be visible to others so that new men will want to join your fraternity. And so it's a great time to get reestablished and to get reengaged on that. I think people are looking for stuff to do. They're looking for community groups or lodges like we are to maybe even host an event. At our last meeting at St. Joseph Lodge, we decided next winter in February, we're going to have a local history day. I'm a local history buff. I've got all kinds of pictures and paraphernalia and whatever. So what I'm going to do is put on a talk, and we're going to just invite the general community. And I know we'll get a number of people up there that'll be curious. A lot of them have never seen the lodge. And it's an easy way for us to engage with them, promote the event on social media so we gain some visibility. And it's really going to be the first of what we think will be a series of events over the next year for the pure purpose of increasing our visibility, because that's one thing we were struggling with before COVID. And COVID just, accelerated it. And that's, we haven't been very visible on the radar. You come to our town and they'll say, we'll tell somebody we're a member of the lodge, and they'll say, well, where is it? And I'm like, well, it's right there. You can't see me pointing, but I am. And it's funny how many people go by our building, some of them every day, and have never looked up and seen that square compass on the top. So I think the Grand Master's message is spot on. You got to be active or you're going to die, because once guys get worn out and it's just the same 7 or 8, coming and just trading titles and chairs every year, well, you're pretty much done at that point. And so again, my philosophy on all of Freemasonry is you go to lodge to be a better person. Education is what makes you that. And then you go out into the community and apply it and you make the world a better place. So to me, it's a very simple formula, but you got to be engaged on all parts of it. So get engaged, get out there, get active. We need you. There's lots of opportunities for everybody to participate. So, Bill, any comments on that?
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, there's so many things that you can do within your community and within your own lodge. That's the thing. It's like so many guys, and I've known several lodges and they were active in the communities, but they still was hemorrhaging members because they would go up there and they'd go out, they'd do a paper drive, or they would, go build a playground for somebody, which is all great. I mean, every community needs people in there who's going to help better the community, but they just didn't do anything for each other. They was just kind of like, they could have been like a service club, like the Lions Club or the Elks, or, pick another animal. And, they didn't take care of each other. They would look at charity, but they didn't look at Masonic relief, and they didn't talk to each other. If a brother quit coming, they didn't question it. He could have been sick, or he could have been, had problems with his family, or they never would actually check on him. And, it's like after a little while, these guys would just kind of go their separate ways, because, some of the charity stuff that they were doing, they could have done without the lodge. And so I think it kind of needs to be a bifurcated thing. You need to do something in your community and with each other. And I mean, you need to hold events with the family also. I mean, it's just, you can't, let one go. I mean, just like, like you were saying, you got to exercise your body. Well, you also have to take care of the nutrition of the body to make sure it's healthy. So you can't, let one go without doing the other. There's just so many things that you need to do for each other as well as for the community to ensure that you're going to be a success.
Yeah, and that's where, and I'm going to have Darin, talk some about this, but being active, being seen, helps results. And Darin, what's your observations? I mean, you and I have seen kind of the ups and downs at St. Joe of the cycles. What's your thoughts?
So to Bill's point, I absolutely agree. And part of the conversation Bill, Greg, and I were having was potentially putting on what's called a rusty nail degree, having like a breakfast one Saturday morning and inviting the brethren that haven't been showing up for Lodge, just, let them know they're still welcome, and to go over some of the things that they may have forgotten. A lot of guys may, as surprising as it may sound, forget the passwords and are embarrassed to ask for help, or even though you're asking a brother and the brother would supply that to them. Men are very, very silly and stubborn, I'll say. We get stubborn over the silliest things, and we don't like to be embarrassed. So I know, my fear is that there are members that aren't showing up because they've just forgotten some of these basic things. And I think their fear of that embarrassment is maybe keeping them from Lodge. So I absolutely agree. We need to make a better effort of reaching out to them. I think, to Greg's point regarding St. Joe, and we'll talk a little bit about why I joined the Shrine. So I joined the Shrine this past end of September. Greg and a few other are starting a Shrine Club here in St. Joe, but also to serve St. Joe, Ogden, Homer, Sydney, particularly those 4 Masonic lodges. And we're calling it the Salt Fork Shrine Club because the Salt Fork River runs through all 4 of those communities. I think maybe not Ogden, but Homer, Sydney, and St. Joe for sure. But the point being that I have tried through my various 2 past attempts as Worship Master St. Joe to engage the men in the community, either directly or indirectly, to join the lodge. My efforts in that area have not been fruitful. So my thought was that in joining the Shrine, I could help support the effort of not only the hospitals and the charities that the Shrine supports, which I think is of the utmost importance, but secondly, I see the Shrine as a opportunity to show men maybe the lighter side of Freemasonry, but essentially using it as a way to get fresh blood into our local lodges. So I'm proud to be now be a noble of the Shrine, and happy to help Greg as he launches this effort to the Salt Fork Shrine Club. And Greg, maybe you want to speak a little bit more about that.
Well, to your point, Darin, it is to have some fun. We're going to use it as a way to support those 4 blue lodges. I think it's also going to be a way to increase the visibility of the 4. Shriners are naturally, active in the parades and other things like that. I think they've got a high name ID because of all the hospital charity work and advertising that's done for them. I've spoken to a few non-Masons about the club already, and there seems to be some interest. And so I think it's just going to be another tool in our Masonic portfolio, to engage people. And I can see it already that, the club, I don't care about how big it gets. I'm not worried about that. But, if it stays small, that's fine. But I see the opportunity for it to partner with the Blue Lodge to be in those parades, or to, maybe the Shrine, our club is helping support the pancake breakfast, or vice versa, whatever it is. It's just a natural thing. And I think especially in the small, rural towns that we are going to focus on, people will come to identify it very quickly and understand what it is. And I think it's just yet another way for us to market who we are and what we do. And they probably won't know that you need to join the Blue Lodge to be a Shriner, but I think that's where the opportunity to also say, hey, the Blue Lodge is the basics. It's where we're, helping men improve. And that's just part of the journey of being a Freemason. Bill, I know were active in the shrine in Indiana. What was your experiences as a Shriner?
It's hard to say because I was a Shriner. In fact, I hadn't even thought about becoming a Shriner. Well, I was going to be all Blue Lodge all the time. That was pretty much my score. And then one night our lodge, after we closed, we'd go to the local shrine and have dinner and drinks and just BS for the evening till about 2, 3 in the morning. And one of the guys said to me one night in front of everybody else, he says, "When are you going to join the shrine?" I says, "Man," he says, "are you kidding?" I said, "You guys just taught me into joining the New York Rite. I just joined the Scottish Rite for you guys." I said, "I don't have any time or money left to join the shrine." And they says, "Well, it don't take much to be a Shriner." I said, "Well, I don't have that kind of money right now." They said, "So it's the money." I said, "Well, yeah, for the most part." So, and a little while later, I went to the bathroom and I came back and laying on my plate was a shrine petition. And I laughed. I said, "Guys, I told you I can't do it right now." They said, "Now look, while you were gone, we went ahead and put the money together. We got your initiation fee and your first year dues already set up. We put it through the potentate's door. We don't have a key to it, so it's already done. So you're stuck. Just go ahead and fill this out. We're going to shove it through. So you're done. You're going to be a Shriner." And I, well, okay, why not? What's one more? So I filled out the petition, and then they were going to have initiation here like a couple months later. And so I drove home that night from Buffalo, New York, all night to get to that, thinking them that morning. And I became a Shriner, and I'm like, first thing they did is, "Congratulations, we'll have a beer." They threw a beer in my hand. I'm like, what in the world did I just get into? But it's like most of the things that my talents got me to was behind the scenes stuff. I was their webmaster. I was their I was their public relations. I did a webmaster, and I was also a magazine editor. So it's like most of the stuff that I did for them, besides like taking photographs at local parades and stuff, was behind the scenes. That actually was fine with me. And I was tickled to be a Shriner. I mean, I didn't really think of it one way or the other, but one day I was sitting at my desk and an email came through on my Shriner email address. And this woman sent an email. She says, "You Shriners say you take care of kids." And she says, "My grandson, he's got badly burned over the last weekend. And I forget what percentage of the body he done. He's only 7, 8 years old. He was underneath a rollaway bed with his little brother, and he got a hold of a lighter. And he started flicking this lighter, and it caught the mattress of this rollaway bed on fire. And as it caught, the mattress fell down on him, and it basically stuck to his skin, and it fused to his skin, and he got really badly burned. And so in this family, they lived in a little rented trailer. They didn't have 2 nickels rubbed together. And I contacted the lady. I said, "Well, absolutely, we'll take care of this." And she said that the local burn unit, they demanded money up front that these people didn't have. And somehow they went through the family and they got to get this kid treated. And the whole time that they're working on this 7-year-old, the nurses were scolding him, telling him what a bad boy he was, messing with them lighters. He could have killed his brother, could have made their family homeless. And this poor kid was, devastated. I mean, he already knew that he'd done bad. He's suffering because of it. And she says, "Do you guys take care of these kids?" I'm sorry, every time I think of this, it's been 15 years later, but I still tear up. I said, "Absolutely." So I called the potentate, and he said, "Yeah." He says, I was just at that hospital, and they made me pay them." He says, "Absolutely." So I gave him the number, and they set it up. Well, then the father contacted me a few days later, and he says, "Well, we have to go to Cincinnati, which is like a 4-hour drive." He says, "I don't think my van would make it. Besides that, it's summer, and we don't have air conditioning. I just don't know if we can do this." I said, "So, sir," I says, "we'll drive you there." I says, "We have vans that go there several times a week. We will take you there. You'll make your appointment. We'll even feed you. Don't worry about it. You're covered." And so, I think it was a few months later, we had a party at our shrine horse ground. We had parties all the time, but this one they brought the kids in who'd been to the hospital. And the potentate brought the little boy over to me. He says, "Bill," says, "this boy here is the one that you helped." He took my hand and he looked up. He said, "Thank you so much." And despite all the red tape the shrine has, and sometimes the backbiting and the politics, is that little boy and the look on his face is why I continue to be a Shriner to this day. But I think everyone has. There's so many of these young guys, and I understand it. They don't like the shrine, and I totally understand why. I mean, they're here for character building. They're here to learn. And I totally get that. But, sometimes you can learn through social events. And I definitely learned a lesson about Freemason through that instance and that little boy. And I think if more brethren actually did that and went through and helped with the hospital, they might be opening up something in themselves that they won't find in a book or in a chamber of reflection. They're going to find something deep within themselves. If you ever visit a shrine hospital, you'll see children. Picture a 5-year-old children or smaller. Sometimes 1 or 2 years old. They're just barely able to walk. And they have prosthetic legs, or they have a prosthetic arm, or they have a cleft palate that they're having worked on. Or they're in a wheelchair. Children who should be on a playground enjoying their life, but they're stuck in the top. And to know that their family doesn't have to worry about anything, even if they can't pay for the service that they're getting, they're covered. And I don't know how much more you can learn about Freemasonry and by helping those children.
Yeah, what a great story, Bill, and we appreciate you sharing it. And frankly, the fact that 15 years later it touches your heart, I think, illustrates the power of what the shrine can do for young people. And I think your point's well taken too. It's that act of charity, not of giving somebody, not just the donations, but the act of facilitating a young person getting that help. That's just an amazing experience. And that's one of the things I want to build on in with this new club and give others that same experience that you've had. So Bill, thanks for telling that story. I don't think we couldn't have scripted anything any more heartfelt than hearing you tell that. So I am glad you did.
And, not only the shrine, but there are several. Freemasonry has many other charities that we actually run. I mean, the Royal Arch has disease things they're working on. Tall Cedars of Lebanon work with muscular dystrophy. We can go out and make a difference in our community, which is a great thing, but we can also make a great deal of good for all mankind throughout the world just by helping Freemasonry every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's, again, it's all part of that total package. To me, it's the Blue Lodge is the foundation, and you come there to learn those things, but the shrine and some of those others are where you can go out and put it into action. And so to me, they complement one another and they go hand in hand. So really, I'm looking forward to getting more involved with the hospitals and seeing what we can do for the kids. So, well, we're getting late into our show. I'm going to see if Darin has any final comments.
No, I just want to thank Bill for telling that story. I'll just say one of my favorite television shows is a show called Psych. It was on USA Network for a long time, and it's basically a show about friendship. There's a character, Sean Spencer, and then his best friend is Guster Burton. There's always a line that Gus says about being a sympathetic crier. So, Bill, you made me tear up there with your beautiful story. And thank you again for telling it, and there's no shame in showing your emotions. I think men should be able to do that and not feel shame. So thank you, buddy, for having the trust in us to be able to share that with us. I appreciate that.
And luckily, there's nobody, just us three that's talking, and nobody else will ever hear this.
Well, that may or may not be the case. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's the thing. We're never sure. Sometimes we're just talking to ourselves. Hopefully, we assume you're listening if you're not one of us. So thank you for that. Even if you're the only listener, we appreciate that. But Bill, any other final comments as we close out episode 40?
Well, I just want to thank everybody for listening. I mean, I don't know about Greg and Darin, but I never really thought that we'd even make it to 40. I mean, we're going up there with rarefied air with RJ pretty soon if we keep this up. But I just want to thank you guys and thank everybody for listening. And if you ever are on the bubble about wanting to become a Shriner and you're near one, and go visit a Shriners Hospital. If that doesn't make you want to sign that petition, then you have a heart of stone. And just keep working on that Ashler of yours. Hopefully, you're going to find everything that you're searching. Thank you for listening.
And again, we do appreciate everyone. We're going to have some good guests lined up in the weeks ahead. And we're getting close to that holiday season, starting with Halloween. It's only a couple weeks away as we record this, so believe it or not, we've almost made it through 2021. So again, attend your Blue Lodge, attend your appendant bodies, support Freemasonry, get active in your community, and make a difference in the world. So until next time, we appreciate all of you, and thank you for listening to Meet, Act, and Part.
Thank you for listening to Meet, Act, and Part. For more information about our show, visit our website at www.meetactandpart.com. While there, please consider supporting the show by sponsoring us on Patreon. Until we meet again, may we meet, act, and part.